Hello. Once again, internet people, we're back. This is season 5. I gotta think about it every time. Episode 8. 8. It's 8. I do the thumbnails. I should do that. I should know this stuff. This is like a large collective. Also, this episode is sponsored by Cognitive MTB. We'll hear more from them later. Arkansas Enduro Series just encapsulates so much, and we have people behind it. We have more than one people in the studio. Madeline, Brannon. Oh, who we got? And Dustin. And Dustin. Scott's busted. Scott co-hosting as usual.
My turn.
Guest, welcome.
What's up?
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I probably should make some like applause. I need a soundboard.
Yeah, that would be
I think
cool.
that's going to be something in the future upgrades. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about y'all. And unfortunately, Dustin, spotlight's going on you first, brother.
Really? Okay.
It's happening. It's happening.
I almost didn't make it.
He didn't. Yeah. The roads out to the studio are treacherous. I admit that. And sorry and thank you.
No, we subtly put that out there and just let you figure it out.
It was more of our timeline today.
Yeah, because you guys were in Little Rock today.
A few hours ago.
4 hours ago.
Wow. Yeah.
That's great. And here now. That's great. Appreciate it. So you guys were in Capital City, I imagine, scoping for the stop.
Correct.
Yeah, how'd they go?
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We thought it was looking like we could have gotten a little rain, but we finished with a hike today.
Nice.
So as you can imagine, if we're hiking and not riding, then what we might be looking at.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah.
So legs are on fire.
Legs are on fire. Or maybe some like steep
the ticks
descents?
are out already.
Ticks are out.
If you didn't know.
Yeah.
Field report from Arkansas Enduro Series.
I saw a couple of posts about it yesterday in Bella Vista. There's some red ones out there.
Yeah.
It's the dot on the back. I'm here to tell you, Lone
Watch out
Star.
for those. Yeah.
Lone Star.
No
But
fun.
just shout out to Pinnacle Mountain. That's where we're talking about. We were at Pinnacle Mountain today, and
Pinnacle Mountain,
system is running sick. I mean, the trails are dialed. That crew from the volunteers, they just had some folks come in and rework a couple of the jump lines and the flow lines, stuff that's just fun for folks to go out there and hit. And
That exists there already.
That exists out there, and so if that hasn't been on your list of systems to hit, and you missed last year's Capital City Enduro, I mean, that Pinnacle Mountain State Park and that investment the state has made in that monument trail there is it quickly from last year, quietly, that was kind of that sleeper round for us. It ended up being the second most popular in the series last year. Just it's a sleeper for sure, so put it on the list.
Yeah, I've never been out there yet. Not
Yeah.
that far.
See?
That was really fun.
Yeah.
Was it?
Because
There you go.
Madeline,
Madeline, you raced it.
Yeah.
Madeline raced it.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, yeah. I still think about stage 2, even with being
I had to
flat
think
on
for
it.
a second.
Yeah, that stage 2 was like that'll be in my memory.
Year after year, it's
Mix
hard
them
for
up.
me. Yeah, people will say, "Oh, like what about we raced stage 6 last year,"
And you're like,
and I get so jumbled
what
up
was that?
from so many races. Yeah, but stage 1 and 2 actually at River Mountain, not Pinnacle, is part of the Capital City, or last year was part of the Capital City Enduro course, and both 1 and 2 was a combination of event only lines combined with River Mountain trails. So, but 2 started with a pretty intimidating, I guess might be a good way to put it.
The pre-ride day was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that was actually like most of the trail or most of the stops that you schedule seem to have some mix of existing trails and then some like spice that you'd add in.
Yeah.
That's something that's just like a standard for every race. I imagine that makes it a little easier to like knock out so much, in such a short time.
Yeah. I mean, it's always River Mountain. So the first 2 years ago, we did a Capital City Enduro that was actually prior to Pinnacle opening their new visitor center.
Oh yeah, I knew about that.
So, that was kind of a barrier of entry getting into Pinnacle. And so the first round was actually all over River Mountain.
Oh, okay.
And I did a lot of work over there getting some of these event-only lines in.
Right.
And so going back last year, it was real easy to go into there and open those back up real quick, and then focus on.
They're kind of
yeah. So
sitting there waiting for
you. We have
you.
a lot of venues that just kind of develop over the years.
Right.
Right.
It's almost like you the presence of AES at a location creates a new system in some form of fashion.
There's always some level of, you can definitely run yourself in circles sometimes trying to figure stuff out, but I always try to go into a place and, find what's most fun to race, obviously, and then start figuring out how everything works together best for, keeping lines down and making sure that there's no bad overlap with starts and finishes of stages that would cause a timing problem.
Right.
I like to try to think and reduce climbs that might become redundant if you're having to do the same thing over and over. That's not fun. You know? Sometimes you can't get around stuff like that. But
yeah, I mean, when there's a return trail that just gets to a spot that's like the hot spot, that's like there's not much
passion
option.
play can be like that. When we do Eureka Enduro or our Redemption Enduro, part of SET.
Oh right.
You can just end up going up the same forgiveness trail 5 times, and that's no fun.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Something about doing a trail multiple times climbing.
Yep.
But to your point and to what Dustin was, what you alluded to, that kind of that event only experience, those event only lines.
Yeah.
We feel that does separate this series from some of the others out there, because it's not easy. We're out there doing the work. We're working with land managers. We're sensitive to the fact that there is an existing trail system out there. We want to celebrate that and the investment that folks have made in those trail systems, but at the same time, having a really quality racer that Dustin is as our race director, he can go out there and find those event only experiences. That's what we want to create. We want every round of the AES to be this adventure. Dustin describes it as designing adventures on your bike, and the opportunity to come out and have this. The only time likely you're going to be able to have these experiences is if you show up on race weekend, and we think that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Well, sure. And we've had some rounds too, and I mean, even back to the first Capital City Enduro that was just at River Mountain, and there was people that lived there that were like, "How are you going to do an enduro just here?" And
they don't see the vision.
And it was really funny. And man, I went in circles around that place for half a day, like five times. Just like, oh, that doesn't work. Oh, this is cool. That works. If we do this way, then that opens up this, but we can't do that.
It's like an art.
It is.
Yeah.
It's racecraft.
But it was really fun because even the locals, they were like blown away, because they were like, we ride this often.
Right.
But we have never rode it like this before.
Like this.
Yeah.
Right.
My favorite part of the series was the event only lines. Yeah. Those are awesome.
And
heard that.
Back into, we like to create fair competition.
Sure. Yeah.
From our categories to the course. And, especially with AES, a lot of our venues are in some town. And, when you have out-of-state racers coming in, or out of, Central Arkansas coming up to NWA or vice versa.
Sure.
To have a unique course in someone's kind of home court that challenges everyone kind of the same way.
Yeah.
Is a good way to create that fair competition.
We take that kind of home field advantage and take it out of the cards where we can.
Not this last recent one, but the one before that I did with Jason and Conjunction Junction. I've never ridden that before, and it's like that. Now I like riding it more often than
that. Is funny. It was after the race that it was like, now you talk about it all the time after that.
I gotta ask though, like, because it's always just I'm just curious about it in my own thoughts. When you're like scoping out a trail, I mean, there's different skill levels, right? You got pros, experts, and stuff like it. The consideration of, man, can the beginner intermediates hit this, or do you have to create an outline, or do you look for stuff that already has that?
Yeah. Dustin can tee this up, but we talked about it today in the sense that, and this is how he put it to me, because I asked him to explain it to me recently, and it's about you need to be able to earn that speed. We don't give speed for free, because if you are using a line where, say, you do have an amateur or somebody and you just give them that speed for free, chances are that's where someone's going to get wadded up. That's where someone's going to get hurt. And so Dustin looks for these experiences that if you can go fast, it's because you have the talent and the ability to go fast on that trail. And I appreciate and value his eye for that. And I mean, that's the best way I can describe it.
Something that we've learned and seen over the years. You know, for example, one of the best examples is Train. We've used that trail a lot in past Bentonville Enduros and Bike Fest, Bentonville Bike Fest Enduros. Great trail, super fun trail to ride, but it's a trail that gets people in trouble.
Yeah. For me, Deliverance.
True. Yeah.
Deliverance was in my head a lot because I've never ridden it before, and I wasn't ready to hit that A line with the anxiety of racing at the same time.
Well, we're telling that story right now then.
Yeah. So and I'm not by any means an expert at all. So I was going, I'm not hitting that. But thankfully there was an alternative, and I don't know, I haven't been up there since, but I don't know if that alternative was made up or has it always been there.
Yeah, originally, Passion Play majority was built by Jagged Axe Trail Designs, Alex Scott. Yep. Great company builder. He has a great eye for, finding the line that he did on Deliverance. Is so unique.
Like top to bottom, it has spice, and like that's something that is awesome to actually have, like a labeled black that it feels it, and and it's just a part of the network.
But originally that line did not have any B lines, and I kind of actually went to Alex and I was like, hey, what do you
want to chill this one out?
We want to race it, because it's such a cool, technical, hard line. It's a pretty fitting enduro line to race on, but I felt we had to find a way to
because you got this class that's not gonna probably be able to do it.
Yeah, two big cruxes on that trail that probably
everybody knows. If you've been there,
I wouldn't say a lot, but definitely a percentage of people that are going to be like, no, like, I'm not going down that. And so we went in and made those, really one big beeline around that rock spine and drop.
Yeah. But you still had to fit your bars between those trees.
Yeah, it was a tree gate for sure. I know.
That was pretty challenging.
Well, there had to be something hard.
Right. Madeline's sitting here all quiet because, Madeline, you were injured for round.
I've actually never ridden Deliverance.
No, I didn't know.
Every time I've been to Eureka and Passion Play, I've been hurt.
Oh, I got hurt.
Taking blood.
After stage one.
It's taken my blood multiple times.
I was on my way to that trail in the race, and I ruptured my Achilles just working my way over to it.
On the way to the trail.
Geez. The first.
Here's what I will say though. Even though she was hurt, she was there, and she threw the raddest stage marshal. We're like, hey, we need volunteers.
So
how sick is that?
Marshal.
Yeah.
She was giving out candy. We gave her like this boom box, and she just stood up there and just she brought the vibe.
I loved that
all day.
Like, I just liked being there and like cheering people on, making sure their climbing switch was off.
I have
like
to
your
agree.
shocks unlocked.
Yeah. I did it for at the castle, and I had a blast. I was like, I'll do it. Let's see what this is about. And
you still get the
I met so many people that like we follow each other but don't know each other type of thing, like on Instagram
we're friends
and
now.
stuff, and it's like, I know you, and stuff. So it was cool. I met some people.
I
it
think
was
some of the racers when I was stage marshal didn't realize like I was racing the series. I was just out because of my arm. And they're like, who is this girl? I'm like, is your shotgun locked? Like, you're in the gear you want? And they're like, she's really helpful. So like,
that's good advice.
Yeah.
So like nothing sucks more than you've been climbing, you go to bomb downhill and you're like,
But hey, shout out. Finished the series pro second So there you go. That's
right.
legit. It missed around and still got back. And I don't know if y'all saw that. Maybe
don't
put it in the show notes, but that was a gnarly photo.
The gore.
It's well said.
I almost used that shot for your thumbnail for the show.
There you blur it.
Yeah, I was like, it's fitting.
That was such a crazy experience because I was like, wow, adrenaline is one hell of a drug.
Yeah,
it didn't hurt till like 2 a.m. that night.
Yeah,
like I scratched it and I was like, ooh, that needs stitches.
And it was like open. Like,
it was
there's a little mouth there
coming out. Like Andrew was awesome, and he gave me a shirt because I was
that's right.
I was wearing one of those like a dry fit shirt. It was not going to absorb anything. Mm-hmm. I was like, can I have a shirt? And I was like, don't send a picture to your wife of your shirt right now. It looks like you got murdered. And I was like, I got stitches and I came home and I was telling my boyfriend Thomas, I was like, it just kind of stings. I'm kind of surprised. I thought it hurt more. Woke up at 2 a.m. I was like, oh.
Started throbbing, huh?
I was like crawling to the Advil. I was like,
that's how long it took.
It actually does hurt. Yeah.
So how did this all begin?
Dustin, Dustin's been around longer than most in this. I'd say at this point, probably the longest in this space, this gravity space here in Arkansas. And so, as far as a history tour, I'd put it on him to take us down.
Yeah, it goes back to, AES officially goes back to 2017. Mm-hmm. But leading up to that, it was in 2014. Prior to that, I had been racing BMX for a while. Some people I raced BMX with, we got into mountain biking and started watching downhill, going to Leatherwood, which Leatherwood kind of ties this all back together. Mm-hmm. And we used to go out in a pickup and shuttle. DH2, is the original, which I guess they all have names now. Yeah. But DH2 is the original downhill trail at Leatherwood. Mm-hmm. We used to go out and shuttle that all day, one trail.
Yep.
Started racing downhill a little bit, traveling out of state. We got to go to 1 or 2 races a year. Angel Fire or Winter Park, whatever. And then 2014, there was a guy named Kent out of Little Rock. I think he had been to Europe. He had been introduced to Enduro World Series and saw the Enduro format, thought it was cool, and did, to my knowledge, it was one of, if not the first Enduro in this region. And that was at Iron Mountain. And he actually called that Arkansas Enduro. Totally separate from AES, though. Nice. So that kind of started, I'd say, a bug for a lot of people in this region. And Enduro really blew up in 2014, 2015. So that following year, Southern Enduro Tour started. Trail Party started a series in just Texas, SET being predominantly Texas, a little bit Arkansas and Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And I got pretty involved with that series racing, started racing with a team. And, me living in Northwest Arkansas, worked in one of the bike shops at the time. I knew Gary Vernon pretty well, and every time Gary would come into the shop, I was showing him, videos and photos and telling him what we were doing and about this sport, and I was all in.
You were in it, yeah.
And so I would say, I don't take all the credit for AES. There was a kind of a collective, small group of people that came together and brainstormed. But it was kind of me showing Gary this, and it kind of snowballed from there. And I really wanted a enduro in Eureka Springs at Leatherwood, because of the downhill trail and just, and this was pre gravity trails.
And that's where you caught the bug kind of anyways.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
But so also, I'm sure you probably saw the potential all the years riding there.
Yeah.
Because like you were hitting just one trail, but you're like, man, if we could just get a crew out here, think of what we could do.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we kind of thought, we kind of seen that, it was at that time a little bit out of the region of SET. Mm-hmm. And we saw, all the trails that were being built, everything that, Oz Trails was pretty new at that time. And so we actually decided that Eureka was a little bit too remote.
Yeah.
To kick off something.
Right.
Kohler was brand new, being built. And so Kohler 2017 was actually a one-off enduro. It was actually the Kohler
Enduro.
Kohler Enduro.
I remember this. Yeah.
In the fall.
Yep.
Was the first Arkansas Enduro Series event.
That's great.
And then in 2018 was the first full season.
Proper Arkansas Enduro Series.
Yep.
Okay, got it.
So
that's cool that Kohler plays such a heritage role in it. And
so we were actually, the hub was being finished. And so at the hub at Kohler was the debut of, its opening.
Oh, okay.
And so that Kohler Enduro was actually the first riders, I'm pretty sure the first riders to be
it's like the first tires on?
On the hub.
Wow.
At Kohler. And
we
actually had the venue down in the Grove where the barn is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That field down there. There was nothing else there but the barn.
Right.
We were using a little gravel access that's just above the entrance to the campground.
Uh-huh.
And that's where everyone was
coming in
and out.
Wow.
So
even pre just like the infrastructure that everybody is so familiar with at Kohler.
Now, yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, there was no walking trail. There was no bridges across those creeks. We were having to use, a Jeep and UTV to get back and forth across Kohler through the creek. And
that's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, you were in the trenches of the event, the beginning, digging for it.
This whole place, I'm sure
literally
a lot of people have stories, obviously, and how much has been developed in the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's
8 years.
I feel like it's one of those like you drive through a town, you're like, I remember when that was a dirt road. Mm-hmm. It's like the same thing with like bike trails.
Yeah.
Like I remember when that was just nothing, The DH2 story comes up a lot with the with Leatherwood because it does seem to be like the spark for gravity that Northwest Arkansas
goes way
needed.
back. Goes way back.
Still one of my favorite trails.
Oh yeah,
I
think it's
in Arkansas.
I think it's a lot of people.
So that trail dates back to I think 99. They opened up that system. Shout out to like Dave Rinko and the Ozark off-road cyclists and those OGs out of Carroll County were like throwing down. And we'll talk about this. They created that trail system and then they needed something to bring it together and visionaries for sure. But the Fat Tire Festival and the Fat Tire Festival was really the kind of birth of gravity around here. They took at the time what was an AMBCS race, and then they did a Super D, which was kind of pre-enduro, and then they would do a downhill, and they would pack all that into the weekend. And for the longest time, that was the longest running mountain bike festival in the state of Arkansas. And it was it was where to be in July. Like it was hotter than hell.
Yep.
Every time you were there, people were like in their underwear in the creek. That was just part of it. That's what you did.
Yeah.
But like it was the place to be.
Yeah.
And it had this gravity for like the whole state, and it brought people from all over the country to this zone, and it brought them to like Eureka Springs. And so a lot of Arkansas's like history in mountain biking, it's steeped in a couple places, and like Eureka Springs, Devil's Den State Park, there's a couple of those right around here that's really kind of where a lot of this stuff started. And shout out to Eureka Springs. We did make kind of announcement earlier this year. We are bringing the Fat Tire Festival back. The hat is back. We're re-envisioning it around gravity with, like Dustin talked about, we've had this investment that's happened in Eureka Springs with the downhill park now, and what an opportunity to bring back what was a truly a crowd favorite. So we're going to hold on to those things that made it so fun. We're going to hold on to the big town ride. Eureka has this incredible network of just like hidden community mountain bike trails that truly connects that town, that people use those trails to go visit their neighbors. I mean, that's how cool and connected that town is. And with the investment that was made at the Passion Play now, and you've got Marble Flats, I mean, there's so much trail available. And a lot of it is being envisioned around gravity. And that's what I feel separates Eureka Springs from some of the other zones you can ride in the region. And so we're taking it over. We approached the city. We're going to re-envision it. We're building it around the Eureka Enduro rather than a cross-country AMBCS race.
Okay.
And then we're using it as a pilot event for, we kind of snuck this out there in the press release with when we announced that we were bringing the Fat Tire Festival back. Nobody grabbed onto it, and that's okay because we've been kind of quiet about it. But I'll just say right now, we are launching the Arkansas Downhill Series. We are doing that in 2026. We are doing that collaborative with the Arkansas Enduro Series. And so you're going to see a full 3-round downhill series in 2026. And the first pilot event will be at this Eureka Enduro and Fat Tire Festival this September in Eureka Springs, Arkansas.
Oh, wow. That's going to be sick.
Yeah, I mean,
breaking news.
That's awesome.
I'm literally jaw dropped over here.
And Eureka, man, just the community and that town, they're just so open with stuff. I mean, they're down to
that city is, I mean, even from my experience, it's just been like very positive when it comes to I'm going to group in action sports. Cheesy word, I know. I'm sorry, everybody. But it's just like, skateboarding's gotten a lot of love from Eureka. Mm-hmm. And it just seems like, I mean, rarely have I ever gotten just a straight up no. I don't know.
No, it's like you can just go to that park that's just nestled. There's a skate park there nestled in the hills, and they just let you do your thing and have a good time as their vibe. That's it. It's
also I mean, there's very few skate parks in the area, and just for Eureka to be one of those places,
a pretty unique one.
It is. Dreamland was the park builders that built it, and the story goes that they were the whole park was envisioned around the owner doing one line.
Okay.
And he built the whole park so that he could do this one line. He did that line. They left. They haven't been back.
Really?
Haven't been back
on a skateboard?
Yeah.
And it's not. I'm not the best
for
park rider, but
right?
I mean, it
has some stuff.
Tricky.
You can ride it. You can ride it on a bike. I've done some things there, but it's hard. Yeah. Like the BMXers, like it's got some space. Mm-hmm. For BMX. I want BMX to come there more.
It'd be cool.
Yeah.
Be something to think about future years, maybe.
Do we need to start talking about something? Off air, we'll talk about that later.
So
another episode maybe.
So I mean, I gotta imagine that there's just so much that goes into it that like when you completed last year, it's like, is it nonstop? Because I mean, there's so much logistics behind all this. It can't be just.
We joke that there's like this slow time. There's not in this, so for those that don't know, so kind of catching up on the history, the Ozark Foundation, it's a nonprofit based here in Northwest Arkansas. We serve the state. We exist to remove barriers to access to the outdoors. Mm-hmm. We do that through really quality event production that's complementary to, not competitive with the rest of the market. And so Gravity tend to have been call it underrepresented space for years. It's awesome that these folks had the visionaries to grab onto that and create the Arkansas Enduro Series. We had the opportunity to take over that series in 2022 as a foundation. It was looking for a home. Mm-hmm. We said, yes, let's take it. We brought Dustin along with that. He's been the race director RD since its inception. And so he was kind of part of the package. We were happy to have him. And in 2022, our foundation took the reins of it. And, we were coming, it's post-COVID, everything was weird. We know things were still kind of odd in 2022. Sure. And so, the last couple of years, we were wondering, like, what do we do with this series? Can we, what does it need? And, at the end of the day, it just needed a little time. And last year we went all in on this series. We saw it return to, kind of that heyday that we were looking for. We saw a 77% increase over 2023 last year, which is sick. We saw 27% were juniors. So we have this whole vibe, this whole, the Groms and the development teams, the growth, it's there. And so for us in this event production space professionally, when we look at a series or we look at an event and we see that number of juniors or youth bought into this sport, I mean, that tells me we're onto something healthy. Right. And I see nothing but just a positive future for this series, and a positive specifically for this Gravity space in the state of Arkansas, because they're not done. They just recently announced the Oz Trails Bike Park right there in Bella Vista. Yeah. It's it's going to have a lift of all things. Mina has a huge system coming in. That is going to be the gym here in the state as far as Gravity goes. And so right now, where that investment is being made in trail is in Gravity, and so we as a foundation are positioned to continue to make that investment in sport when it comes to gravity. And that's why things like the Arkansas Enduro Series, the Arkansas Downhill Series, that's what we're looking to support, uplift, and create for folks, because we know, well, that's what folks are wanting to do. And so that's the future of the way people want to ride. And, enduro is anytime you can take competition and camaraderie and blend that together, that's the vibe. You can go out there and just I don't know, just dude bro with your pals and gals and ride your bike and just in between stages, and then you just ITT, time trial style down the side of a mountain. That's as cool as riding can get. You kind of get the best of all of it, and that's the vibe. We tried probably too hard. As Dustin would say, we might have nerded it up a bit in 2022 when we took the reins of it, and we threw a bunch of things that just, to be honest with you, they didn't resonate with the enduro crowd, with this scene. And, we did some things that, it truly did. It would have elevated any event. Sure. But it just, at the end of the day, it wasn't necessary. At the end of the day, what we truly needed to focus on was racer experience first. And last year we recommitted to that. And when we did that, that's when we saw, that's the secret sauce. We focus on participant experience first and foremost, and the race experience you're going to have, and the adventure that Dustin's going to design for you to have on a bike. And then, again, we don't nerd it up. With the rest of it, we don't take too serious. We keep it pretty chill. Yeah. And man, at the end of the day, it's a good vibe. It's a good time. Sure. And
I had a blast. I think we all had a blast. I've never had any kind of racing experience or just been involved in any of it. So we kind of inadvertently, from just friends going, we should race as Gnarkansas. And it just spread. Next thing you know, I go, man, we got 10 people that want to race for Gnarkansas. And we're like, okay, so we'll sign up. And then him and I were going, well, I kind of want to provide a spot for us to hang out. And so we reached out to you guys, not knowing if we were just going to get a hard no or nothing. And you're like, yeah, bring it, do whatever you want. And we had so much fun. It was a good time. And you're a part of it. We were all hanging out, and the vibe was awesome, and I thought it was a blast. Yeah,
for sure. And that's probably, Madeline, we can sit here and talk all night, but I'd love from you as a racer, just for us as the folks that put it on, the experience you had last year. That's
absolutely, the event only lines. I keep saying, I think I even came up to you at one point and I was just these lines are awesome. You're a genius. It just really, because you can get home field advantage, and or you go somewhere and you have the locals and you're like, well, great, they've ridden this 20 times, this is my first time seeing it. But when you put in those lines, and it made me such I have y'all to thank for me being a better rider now, because it really tested your skill, but in such a rewarding way. It's funny because I just said before the series, I really want to try more steep trails and loose. You don't get that a lot. And this series was all that. Steep and loose. I was like, this is awesome. Again, the stage 1 in Little Rock, I'll just never forget, you had those catch berms after the flow. And I was it was just so fun and rewarding to push the limit, because you're you have to just trust this berm. This is built really well. And you're hauling, you're tired. It was a 4-minute stage. Yeah. Just catch me. Just rowdy. Oh yeah.
That was a really cool find. And that, back to that first trip, and just going around in circles on that place and finding. I found a couple really cool things, and I was telling Caleb Pierce at the time. He worked at that time for Parts and Rec in Little Rock, and explaining to him my ideas of piecing this course together, and people that live there and ride there, and he worked there, had never seen this little stuff that we found and pieced together. But back to the course design, to me, two really important components are, I think enduro, and I've always tried to withhold this. I know a lot of, you can do enduro and all around the world, and I don't want to say anywhere, but you can kind of do enduro almost anywhere. And I've tried to withhold, I guess, my perception of what I think enduro is. and two important components of that are one, I think it should feel like an adventure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think that it should just be repetitive, staged.
Oh, sure.
Racing.
I mean, I
Staged
feel like
downhill racing.
if that was the case, it would be that's what the people ride anyways. So
Right.
like you wouldn't be providing anything like new for anybody.
Yeah.
That really made it extra fun because like you're out with your buddies and like you
Right.
just get to chill between stages. So like
Mhm.
you're nervous for the first stage and then you got like a nice transition. You're going like
Right.
like it's again like the Little Rock. We have to like see so much. And the whole time, like
adventure.
Yeah, adventure.
Yeah.
You're eating snacks. Like it's just like it's the best race experience.
I mean, I think enduro, you know, it was found, you know, riding, you know, big epic days. You know, I think, you know, and that's where I feel like you should feel like you're not in town at least for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like not lost, but on a journey.
Yeah.
And so the Capital City Enduro, the course last year. You know, I put that together and, you know, we'd never, you know, it was the first year doing the footprint of that course, but it worked out really well because you got that sense of, you know, you're starting way over here and you're not slowly, but working your way back over there. And then, you know, after 2 stages, you go across the Two Rivers Bridge and you get this amazing view off the bridge of Pinnacle Mountain. Off
that was really cool.
Off in the distance.
Yeah,
you're
where
like,
you're headed.
That's where we're finishing.
Yeah.
Which it presents like that I'm on a journey, and that's the goal.
Right.
You know, part of the adventure. I really like that.
Yeah.
So, and then another, you know, another really important component to me is putting together something that is kind of fresh and new for people.
Definitely.
You know, I you know, and another, you know, we can go into it later if you want, but, you know, kind of a topic that a lot of people, you know, there's some controversy around.
To controversy.
But how
you piqued my interest. Let's go.
How and when we release our maps.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know,
No, I'd love to get into that.
A lot of components to that, but, you know, this component that I'm talking about, I don't feel like the enduro course should be something that you go out and practice a week before and 2 weeks before. And I know some people's time restraints play into that, and I get that, but I don't want people to go out and, you know, it's not like a downhill run or something that I think you should go out and memorize.
Right.
You know,
I think the secret is nice.
Want to release it
with
so that you come in and you have to like study. You know, you have this window of time where you have to come in with your gear dialed to make it through this journey and study this map and kind of put it, you know, we don't want, like I said, you know, I don't think you should be out on a course and be lost, but you should have that sense of adventure. And then you should also be out there like crafting your race.
Well, I would think the strategy, you know, I may be wrong, but I think the strategy is to keep the playing field level because, you know, predominantly everything, most of the series is here. And so there's just like a lot of home court advantage, right? So if you don't know what we're going to race, then it's kind of like you only get a day.
And I will tell I will tell you of the 19 states that raced the series last year, 19 states, 18 of them really appreciated that we wait to drop that map, and that's why we do it. Like you said, I mean, was it
Arkansas that didn't?
Likely. And so, you know, shout out to the Arkansas crew, we love you. But but at the end of the day, you know, for those that are yelling at us midweek, release the maps. I mean, that's not what it's about. This is about like having this unique experience that you're only going to have this race weekend, and we're protective of that, and we're protective of it for the right reasons. This isn't about like not setting people up for success. This is about setting people up to have a pretty rewarding weekend on the bike.
Right.
Well, I want a racer to be rewarded on their racecraft, not how well they can memorize and study,
and how many times they've rode it over to gain that advantage.
Yeah. Well,
and if you're trying to push to win, like if that's the edge you need, then you might be pushing, you know, we talk about it in riders meeting, ride within your means.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you're trying to memorize something to get the edge that you need to go faster, then maybe you don't need to be trying to push for that speed.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Like actually, like because you're giving everybody the same window of time. That's basically saying everybody within all of the skill levels are getting the same opportunity, same window of time.
Right.
So that sets, again, levelize the playing field for all skill of riders.
Yeah. And just the craftiness of throwing stuff in there. You know, like the first time I raced, you know, I'm thinking the Bentonville ones, man, I'm going to have the advantage over people coming from, you know, not from people coming from somewhere else.
Yeah, you did say that.
And then you know, it's like junction. I don't even know what that is. You know, and I'm like, the advantage out the window. I have no idea. You know,
what did you think about? What was your favorite stage in the Bentonville Enduro?
Not this recent one because I couldn't do it, but the one before that. I think both of those, the conjunction junction and the one after that's pops you out at the bottom of Strain Train, but it was really
the
weird
hand cut traverse trail.
Yeah, and you just the very end you hit this weird sketchy rock thing into the bridge, right? And
that's not.
I can't remember.
Is it bullet or shotgun?
It's one of those.
Bullet. I think
it's bullet.
I think it was bullet.
If you're looking at the bridge, bullet is on the right. Shotgun.
It's different now though. They did something.
Right.
They changed it a little bit because we just wrote it, but
fun.
I think those were the most fun to me because I was nervous because I was like, I didn't even know these were here.
I was hoping that you were gonna say the waterfall. Is that's
no? I ruptured my Achilles. I still haven't been able to do that one.
That's a stage that they actually ended up keeping it open.
Right.
You know, Kohler, they were actually already kind of looking for a line that they could add.
Hold on, let's take this back just a minute because I want to remind everybody that May of last year, this region experienced a pretty significant weather event with the tornadoes that came through northwest Arkansas, and those were, I mean, we're still cleaning up from that damage. And I just want to give a quick shout, like that Kohler crew, we reached out to them again with this event-only experience that we're looking for, and we approached them with the idea of opening up what has been historically known as the waterfall. First raced in 2019. Yeah. And no one had seen that line since. And so there's this opportunity to, again, the excitement that just the announcement that created, that we were bringing that back. People were stoked. And if you don't know what we're talking about, in a big weather event, there is literally a waterfall that comes down the side of Kohler. And in 2019, these crazy kids turned it into a race line. And when we approached them this year about reopening it, they're like, you can take a look at it because the entire area was full of down trees. And so when Dustin told me he wanted to do this, I was like,
the work.
I had some serious doubts in just the window we had, and just
we got it.
We're a small but mighty crew, and I'm just like, bro, I don't know that this can happen. And so shout out to Chuck Woods and some guys with some chainsaws that came out and showed up, and within like 3 hours, y'all, I was like, we got a stage. Right. And like we went up and found like the historical initial like drop in that we had used and uncovered that pretty quick. And before you know it, like these guys had this whole thing opened up and ready to rip for race day. And that was way cool. And so Matt Timbo, the crew at Kohler, they really kind of stepped up when we said we wanted to do this. They said, okay, let's go. And now it's this secret thing. So they didn't close it. And so if you're at Kohler, I'm not going to tell you where it's at, but just know there's a secret line out there. The waterfall, it exists. They kept it open. They didn't close it down. One thing we do about event-only lines, so y'all hearing this, you're like, okay, you guys are going out and building kind of rogue trail. We're not. We're working with land managers. We're being mindful of how we do this, how we approach it.
Good to hear.
We're creating these unique experiences in partnership with these land managers. And if it needs to go away when it's done, it goes away. We put as much effort and work into restoring that mountainside, that slope side back to its natural pre-race conditions as we found it. And that's good to hear. And so, but what's rad is then sometimes you run into some land managers, like shout out to Kohler, shout out to Pinnacle Mountain State Park, where we built a small little scratch line at Pinnacle Mountain for the capital city. And it was a way to approach a trail called Bobcat Way, which was just kind of this loop to nowhere. It's a cool little trail, but it really didn't have a place in a race or even a ride out there at times for most folks. But with a quick little kind of event only section, we went through this cool little rocky section. You probably remember it. And when you drop into that, now all of a sudden we've opened up a trail that no one was ever going to race. And now we created a whole new downhill line. And you know what they did? They're like, why don't you just leave that? And I mean, we're showing through this, through Dustin's eye for like racecraft, we're showing folks and showing these land. They're like a lot of times. And listen, I come with trail development background. I, shout out to Ozark Off-Road Cyclist. I served as their executive director for several years. I was part of several projects, including the Eureka Downhill Project, and bringing a lot of this stuff to life in the region. But, at the end of the day, a lot of these trail systems aren't being developed initially with events in mind. And I think that's a miss.
Yeah.
And that's a miss. And it just is. And it's part of growth in the region. It's part of growth in, developing trail systems. But, people go in and we start to build these trail systems. And we're seeing it now. Like with the pause is happening to where we want to be like, how can we use this system? How can we activate it for tourism? How can we activate it for events? Because for the longest time, we really didn't have that eye. We were just like, hey, let's go build some sick trail. And we did. But now it's like we're having to at times retrofit some of these venues to host things like enduro racing, to host things even like traditional cross-country marathon or cross-country mountain bike races or NICA races, things that should be easy to incorporate. I mean, they exist. They just need like a 4-mile loop. But we're having to retrofit a lot of these systems to be able to then host what are, truly the events that highlight the region, highlight the state, bring the folks to town. And so, it's something that, we can always do better, but I know that, it's exciting to see that some of the newer development that's happening. I know that folks are starting to look through that lens of not just like, hey, let's build some sick trail, but how can organizations like the Ozark Foundations leverage this for event production? How can others from outside the state come in and then activate this zone for the event that they want to produce? And so that's something that we need to do better in that space. But like I said, I know folks are starting to look through that lens, and I'm excited to see some of the future development built with event hosting and what it can mean in mind. Centennial Park's a great example of that, setting in Fayetteville. We've used that for the Fayetteville Enduro. That was really the first venue we built specifically for racing bikes.
Yeah, that's true.
Olympic
like it is
style,
actually a
mountain
true
bike
venue.
and cyclocross. And that was, and so I think that was, should be a catalyst for others. Others should look at that venue as what it could mean for your community. If you're wanting to, if you're somewhere around, you want to build a trail system, you're looking for a trail system. If you truly want it to have that like deeper economic impact, be mindful of how to develop that system in a way that others can leverage it for events. And because, if you look at it now, Centennial Park, it's hosted multiple cyclocross World Cups. It hosted the 2022 Cyclocross World Championship. For 5 straight years, it's hosted the U.S. Pro Cup. This year, y'all, that U.S. Pro Cup, I know this is endurance space. It's not gravity.
It's okay.
But
We'll
this year,
it.
the U.S. Pro Cup has grown. It will be the single largest professional and elite amateur cross-country mountain bike race to happen in this country.
Yeah.
And that took us 5 years to grow that to that. And it's pretty impressive. And it only happens because the investment was made in a purpose-built venue like Centennial Park in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is that, like, I do want to give the flowers to Ozark Foundation because the investment in event infrastructure is something that's often overlooked. I come from event production. It's my career background. And, many it's not just not just cycling. Like a lot of things in Arkansas, because of the size of the state and the population, a lot of people don't look through the lens of events. How could we host an event here? Or would we even host an event here at all? Like they don't see it through that lens. So then when you start to actually get into the planning phases and the infrastructure build out, no thought was put into it. So you're not looking at restrooms, you're not looking at parking, you're not looking at ingress and egress, and just the simple fact that you have a foundation like this, that the sole purpose is just to simply make events better. Yeah. Like, that's great. Like, seriously great.
And I'll say too, Brannon and I have known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, but last year, right, when you started with Ozark Foundation, was the first time we were actually working together in that kind of capacity.
Like actually like teamwork working together.
And Brannon mentioned, a few minutes ago about focusing on participant experience.
Sure.
I give him a ton of kudos. As much trouble I give you a hard time sometimes, but I give Brannon a ton of kudos for being my champion to allow me to do the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
Because, we've done Arkansas Enduro Series in a lot of places, and you know, we've had a lot of great seasons, a lot of great races, and like you're saying, we've been given venues that, we've had to really think and bring
it a venue
components and and had parking down there and whatever. But back to he's really enabled me to do the best job that I can do.
Sure.
For my vision. And it was really funny last year because from round 1 in Bella Vista to Eureka, I'd always have my ask. I'm like, hey, I need you to go talk to so and so.
The big request
and ask if we can do this. And,
right.
And Bentonville Enduro is a great example last year where I had a bunch of ask, and to the back to the course design and keeping things fresh. I always try to, we haven't done one of the same Bentonville Enduro courses ever. And even with Bike Fest, I would try to look at that event, and where that venue was positioned and make it different than, you're not going to race the same course at the Bentonville Enduro as you are at Bike Fest or what we did at Kohler. And so, we've raced from Kohler to Handcut Hollow, but last year we really wanted, my big ask was putting the venue at Handcut Hollow in a space where everything could be together, consolidated, make it real easy for participants. They got to show up at one place. You pull in, you park. You don't have to find the parking area and then ride somewhere. So everything's in one place. And then as far as the course, I had a bunch of ask, and we had to go to Kohler and Trailblazers and Parts and Rec and all these different people, and the whole season, pretty much. I can't think of one example of something that I asked for that Brannon didn't get permission for.
Props. So. Shout out Brannon.
Well, I set the bar way too high.
Well, that was funny, and that was the funny thing about us working together for the first time last year from round 1, 2, 3, and 4. He was like, "Oh, you set the bar high. Like, what are you going to do next?
What's
round?
next?
What's
next?
I'm sure it's challenging, but being out in the field, just riding with people, just regular talking about the race and just listening to everybody think they know what the trails are going to be and all this stuff. And it's just
pretty funny.
It is pretty funny because nobody ends up getting it right.
No.
So you guys are just killing it with that.
But I think, and what kind of Dustin's alluding to is just something like that, just from us at the foundation, and just when we look at things like, full transparency, we probably overscoped Dustin in 23, and we're asking him to do things that were, outside the scope of a race director and somebody that could solely just focus on racer experience.
Sure.
I don't need Dustin to worry about where the porta potties are going to come from.
Right.
I don't need him to worry about where the food truck's going to come from. I don't need
to
worry about venue permits and things like that. I just need him to tell us what experience he thinks would make a really sick Arkansas Enduro Series round, and then we chase that down. And it seems to be a really good partnership because it does allow a professional like Dustin, who does come, again, this is racer design. Like this, like I think the one thing that truly does separate Arkansas Enduro Series apart and allow folks like Madeline to like have this growth in sport and to get better is because at the end of the day, if y'all didn't know that, Dustin Slaughter is a sick rider. And so like having that skill set and having that eye as a rider to then lay out the design, that's, ultimately that's what you need.
That's what you need.
And take enduro, take cross country, take whatever it is. At the end of the
skateboarding,
same deal. Your guy that designed the bike park over there, I don't know if he did a good job or not. I don't know where he's from. But at the same time, that's at the end of the day, that's the eye that we need. And we look at that across our full calendar of events. You can take the Arkansas, Graveler, and bringing in Scotty Moody to be the event director for that. She has this strong endurance and ultra endurance gravel background. She's been a very successful cyclist in that space. Ty Katie's the race director of the U.S. Pro Cup, one of the most respected race directors in that that cross country space in the country. And so it's finding the right people in these spaces and then empowering them, supporting them to deliver on a successful, really participant experience for all. And I think that, that's part of the secret sauce. And I think it's something that the Ozark Foundation is getting right for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I would say that's what stuck out to me about the lines, the stages, was it was similar to how you're saying you have to earn your speed. It was like I said, it was rewarding. Like there were lines where it was like, all right, this is a high risk. It's a high reward. If you're confident in your skill and you're feeling good that day, you take this line, it's going to pay off if you can do it.
Right.
Now, there were other lines to take, but and I think, like I said, I credit y'all to my riding ability getting so much better after the series, because
That's
it
cool.
really pushed me to be like, there's a line and it's good, but we gotta be dialed.
Yeah.
And that's just, you don't see that as much with the popular trails, especially around Bentonville, because it's supposed to, be more tourism and a good time, but not for an event where it's pushing you to, take some calculated risk. And that was just so unique throughout the whole series. Was even in Bella Vista, I live in Bella Vista, and I was very accustomed to some of those trails, but I mean, y'all added those rake and rides and different elements to it, whereas it was like, all right, you gotta earn it if you want to take some time off.
Bella Vista is one of the hardest. We've done some Bella Vista enduros in the past, and you can get into some long transitions and not the longest stages, but man, Bella Vista is one of the hardest places to put together a course. There's so much out there, and so
there's miles of stuff, and
working within certain variables, trying to hit some marks in there as far as the proportion of time on the bike to time on the clock.
Sure.
And going uphill and downhill.
It's tough.
Yeah, I'd say Bella Vista is one of the more challenging spaces. But I mean, that said, listen, that the Oz Trails, bike park announced, well, that's in Bella Vista, y'all. And so I mean, they are, they're Huntley. There's some really good zones in Bella Vista that does have the gravity. You have to earn it there for sure. And we, I'd say out of all the rounds, that's probably one we did get a little bit of pushback. But Dustin described it. At the end of the day, I would say, if an athlete looked back and considered what they gained from doing the Bella Vista Enduro, because if they hadn't found their fitness yet, they likely started to find it there, right? I mean, that did put, it's an enduro, and part of that, endurance is part of an enduro. It's a big day on a bike, and you've got to, you really got to manage yourself out there. You got to manage your own resources and manage your energy in a way that, that one, it's a punchy, Bella Vista's, it's a land of 100 hills, man. There's a lot of climbing out there. But at the end of the day, I think, when, I pushed back a little bit, but the way Dustin teed it up, it made a lot of sense in the sense that this is going to get people ready for the rest of the season, because it's going to be a hard day. But at the same time, it's very rewarding too.
It's a good, kind of point to make a turn to and talk about another aspect of those courses. Bella Vista Enduro course was the first season, and it goes into working within some of those variables, but also logistics and timing equipment comes into consideration in the courses too. And something that I felt really confident that I could do, but that was new last year that we had not ever done before, was adding the power stages, and also the pro expert only stages. So as the series has grown, we've added categories we've split up expert categories into age groups. We've added more mountain bike stages or categories, and we've added more junior categories. And so again, of trying to find this formula for an enduro course that you're doing in all these different places, trying to take some consideration into, okay, well, this group of categories needs a little bit more challenged in this way. So we added pro expert only stage, and that can be perceived as just, a more technical or harder stage that maybe you don't want the juniors and amateurs to race down, but it also adds some mileage for them too. And then especially for the mountain bike categories, adding the power stages, having more, what we had 17%.
Almost 1 in 5 folks are showing up on an e-mountain bike at this point.
Oh, gotcha.
That's
a good ratio.
So that's really growing, and what we've seen in the last couple of seasons is those guys on the and girls on the e-mountain bikes are just blowing through the course.
Yeah.
Because you can ride so fast.
Yeah, we
cover so many miles.
We witnessed that on the last one where it was like you just see people return so quickly, and you're like,
yeah,
you're not done, are you?
Right.
Like, oh yeah. No, it was a couple, like an hour and a half. I don't know.
Yeah, but shout out to obviously we're stoked to have Monster Energy back. They're the title.
Yeah,
again.
for sure.
I mean, that's a multi-year partnership with Monster, and
Gotcha.
they're making this series possible. And one of the things that this the Monster Energy Power Stage is one that we're stoked on, and that is, again, if you're showing up on an e-bike and you've got those extra watts, we're going to give you that extra stage.
Oh, that's cool.
To go out there and really push the limits of that bike, and it there's going to be some uphill in that typically. I mean, you've got the bike, it's going to climb, it's going to make that climb. Last year at Bella Vista, we raced the Ledges, which was super. That's just a rowdy stage on a normal bike, and so to be able to carry some speed and really push the limits of that e-bike on a long run out like that.
Sure.
We went to Eureka, and then I think one of the coolest ones we found was at Pinnacle Mountain. That Jack Fork extension ended up being this super sick e-mountain bike, this power stage. And so we're only beginning to scratch the surface there too. I mean, we know there's such an opportunity in this e-mountain bike space.
And that took some thinking through on as far as logistics. I can go into a lot of timing. Nerd out in my own way, I guess. With
it's okay. This is the show for it. This is a show for nerding out.
I do gotta point out the biggest gripe that we always hear people say is breaking the e-bikes.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
That's we get that too.
So
class 1, we've got a rule set. We ask people to follow the rules. I mean, people are jailbreaking e-bikes. We know that technology exists. I know that there's a lot of, I think the industry it's new. I mean, it's new in racing. It's a new space. And at some point we're going to figure out, I don't think
for sure,
do we have it figured out? I think we have the right rule set that we ask people to follow for parity in competition. And that's what, Dustin alluded to it as we break down these categories. If you look, we have 22 categories, y'all. And that's true. That's by design, is we want you to race your peers. Right. And that's what this experience is about. When you come to the Arkansas Enduro Series, if you're a junior, even if you're like a newer into this space and you're wanting to chase some gravity as a junior, we've got categories because we've got a separate, elite junior category, like 15 to 18, and so we have different spaces even for juniors based on their capabilities as a racer or where they are in their kind of in this enduro journey they're on, right? And so I think that having this, it's very important to us that we have this peer-to-peer experience. I want you to come out there, and if you're if you're like, I'm 49, and if I want to race my peers, if I show up to a race, right? So we do a really good job to setting folks up to do that. We even to that credit, this e-mountain bike space, we actually added a category this year to our experts. We're exploring, continue to, every year we look at the data. Every year we look at the participant data, and we look at where the growth is, where people are showing up at. And really, we talk about looking through lenses. The lens we're looking through is, are we creating an experience where others are racing the folks that they need to be racing? And we take that into account each and every year. Me and Dustin went through it this year, and we made some adjustments, and we added a category based on the numbers of folks racing that were 19 to 39 and 40 plus. And so we separated a category because we saw we had the participant base to do that, right? And so we're always looking through that lens. So then each year you come back, the chances are we're just going to continue to get better at that. And you show up to an Arkansas Enduro Series round, and you're going to be racing folks that you want to be racing, that you can be competitive with. And when you hopefully step up on that podium box, it's people that you were appropriately meant to be competing against.
Do you guys the podium people that won the beginner, do you go and they're returning, do you say, hey, you're going to expert, or they can still just do it again? What's the theory on that? It's
a self-select, but we don't do it's
screening.
We don't screen. It's not a cat 1, 2, 3. We have people to self-select based on their perceived skill set. That said, I will tell you, this space will also, if you're sandbagging out there, we will also regulate that just as a community. Right. And so it will only, that will only go on so long before people start to call you out. And that's just and typically in a good way, but so if you're probably not the best place to sandbag, but we do ask people, people self-select a category.
Even for jailbreaking, for everybody out there, man, that's lame. Just
I was gonna say, we have rules, and a lot of it, there's not always an official everywhere on course on a 20-mile enduro course. And I think that there is a level of self-regulation in the racers. If someone is trying to create a line that they shouldn't create, or taking a big rolling start into, I try my best to position gates in a way that makes it harder to do those sorts of things. But I was going to say, with the jailbreak thing, usually the time will show if somebody has.
Yeah, they're just smoking people.
Yeah.
So
I think just having, like Brannon said, having the right rules. We're still.
It sucks that you even have to.
Well, we and everybody else. So anybody else in this space across the country is dealing with this. It's such a new space. It's growth. It's where the growth's at, and it's something that I'm confident at some point we'll figure it out. You know what I mean? And right now we're putting a lot of that back on the participant to just be good humans, and for the most part, most of them are right, and that's what it's about. And so, and at the end of the day, maybe in the power stage, but I don't know how much of an advantage an e-bike is on a descent. I just, you know what I mean? Like I don't.
Like something like ledges, that's really not that much advantage with how tight and twisty that is. So you have to have skill to go fast on that.
For sure. And sorry.
You're good.
That ended up being a great stage. I rode that several times. I took Brannon out there and we rode it, and doing that for the power stage for the first time, and racing ledges for the first time. That ended up being really, really, really cool. To have. And that's the thing about e-bikes too, is that's actually one thing that I want to be one of my focuses throughout leading up to the season this year, is developing the e-mountain bike stages. And in the future, I don't know, Brannon and I have talked about it a little bit, and I'm always thinking, trying to think ahead and think what else we can do to make some of these things better. I read some cool articles of some pros, internet that are racing internationally on e-bikes, and hearing some of their testimonies of how those courses are designed, and that's something I've been thinking a lot about in the off season is how to further develop our courses to further, challenge the e-bikers a little bit more. So I think
you go to Europe, a power stage in Europe is uphill, y'all. They're racing. They just
I like that. That's rad.
I don't see us doing that. I want to stay in line with
right.
With what I said earlier. This traditional enduro format, but what I see, the opportunity that we have in Arkansas. We can only do so much with what we have. There's some venues in the pipeline that are gonna change that and open up new courses, new venues, in some of these places that are being built right now.
Sure.
But a big opportunity I see in Arkansas is the e-bike really changes what we can do with combining and creating some really unique stages that would just wouldn't be that much
otherwise
fun.
It wouldn't be possible even.
Ledges, for example, I forget the exact mileage that we ended up with.
It was three. About three. Yeah, it's right at 3 for the power stage.
3 miles.
Yeah,
about 3 miles that we raced on ledges, and ended up being, I think, a 12-minute stage, and so that adds a ton of time on the clock.
I see.
That we normally don't see on our regular enduro stages.
Yeah,
I think the opportunity in that space is as Dustin alluded to, the design, the craft that comes with designing experience for e-bikes is different from a traditional.
That's what I was.
What
thinking.
do we call them now? Acoustic bikes, or whatever we call
them.
Bikes.
Bikes.
I don't know.
But twisting in
the
Amish.
Nice. At the end of the day, the development, the design of that experience is completely different. And so I think, and I know, that in the future, at some point, we as a foundation have already kind of, there is going to be some e-bike only stuff.
Sure.
To where the races themselves are designed specifically for e-bikes only.
Yeah, that's
going to, listen,
No,
that's disruptive.
Cool. Yeah,
it's going to
it's
going to rub some folks a little bit. It's
Yeah.
going to be a little disruptive in this space. But, I mean, it's the way
it needs to exist.
it does need to exist. I mean, the adoption of e-bikes is, I mean, I don't want to say it's the future because hopefully we all keep getting on our pedal bikes and keep doing that. But it's going to be part of
a part of this
story
forever. Yeah.
And I think there's such a unique opportunity to then create some experiences. You bought the thing, you've got the thing, and now we can start to design a race experience around that.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty stoked at what some of those events are going to look like in the future.
No,
I think
I
that
totally agree with
supports your mission too of being inclusive to the community and trying to get as many people into the sport as possible.
Listen, if an e-bike's your pathway into this, fantastic, man. And again, 1 in 5 now are showing up. We've got
that's crazy.
Shout out to my masters, man. They're showing up. We got a whole crew of 60 plus that are shredders, but they're out there and they're being able to extend their experience because of their ability to adopt e-bikes as a means to compete at a high level. And so, I mean, listen, if this is a way to keep riding and to keep having these experiences later in your career, man, come on.
Might as well empower it. Yeah.
It's keeping me riding.
I'm honestly, I'm curious to maybe hear some feedback from people that are planning on racing. Racing e-mountain bike at Enduro, because I mean, kind of what I see some of the future development, and what I'm talking about, and continuing to evolve our courses to adopt a focus for the e-mountain bike stages. And I said before, they're getting through the course so fast.
That's right.
I would like, and it probably won't be able to happen at every course and venue, depending on how the trails are laid out and how they tie together and what's available. But what I would really like to see, and I'd be curious to hear this feedback, is to, we like people to ride together. Generally all the courses last year, everyone starts at the same place, everyone finishes at the same place, but the e-mountain bikes, kind of go off on a little bit separate, longer journey.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I read from I don't know who it was that had this article in Mountain Bike Magazine. Basically, their course was designed in a way where they had to choose. They couldn't boost through the whole course.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're going to use all of your battery in that race, so you better think about your battery management in that race.
They were like, well, there's this one transition that, everyone was basically, going down to eco or turning the battery off to get through
Bella Vista one
get through a transition, and then, trying to strategically save some of that battery. Because they know that the last stage of this course that they need to conserve some battery. It's necessary.
Yeah,
I have the smaller battery. I had a decoy for that one, and I had the smaller battery, and I had 1 bar left, and it was part of my straty is managing my battery life.
So that's a whole
other layer
of racecraft, and thinking about how you're gonna. Yeah.
Well, there's a question in the chat that I want to get to, and I have a spicy question, but we do need to hear a word from our sponsor, and we'll get to those questions right after that.
Hey, everybody. It's Scot Ripple, Arkansas. Let me ask you something. How many times has your gear straight up bailed on you mid-ride? Rips, weird fits, the works. That's why we're stoked for this episode's sponsor, Cognative MTB. If you want gear that keeps up, hit up Cognative MTB. Online or check their shop in Hendersonville and use code Gnarkansas20 for a killer discount. Find them at www.cognitivemtb.com. Cognitive MTB, right on.
All right, we're back. Right.
You want to jump in that chat?
Okay. Let's do the chat first because that came before my spicy question. Scott, you want to rip this one off?
Yeah, so we got Casey Anderson on here, and he says, I apologize if you already discussed this, but I don't think that we did. But why is Nebo no longer on the list of locations?
You want me to start?
So you can finish?
This is going to be a long one? Or
I see.
I don't think it is. I mean, I think there's again, we are rich with trail systems
options.
in this options, right?
Yeah,
we're rich with this
absolutely.
options.
Yeah,
and, there's been other events come in the region at different times. If you guys know, Nebo's been host to a BME 2 years in a row, which is, cool. They've since kind of packed up and headed back west after this season. And that's it's fine. We were glad to have them. It's sick that they were able to leverage that venue. It was built to host that level of competition. We were glad to have them here. Originally, the Arkansas Enduro Series was the first to be there to put on enduros on that zone.
Just event too.
The first event. There you go.
Okay.
And so we have not forgot about Nebo. Don't worry, y'all. We have not forgot about it. And so it's not why not. It's the better question to be asking is probably when. And so, but we're asking ourselves that same question. And I will say, you're not going to wait long.
Sure. All right.
Well, another cool thing about the series, in the past, originally Arkansas Enduro Series started in May, and we ran it May through September. There were some other big events happening in Northwest Arkansas in the fall that created a tough schedule. The Oz Trails Epic Rides was hosting that event for several years. Outer Bike.
Lifetime's moved in.
Lifetime.
You got the Lifetime.
So, early on in the Arkansas Enduro Series, our window was kind of that May through September. And, in some of that time, we hosted a couple of those Nebo Enduros and had some big, great events. But, I'm sure if some people are listening that did that, remember, last time that we were at Nebo, it was the forecast was like going to be in the 90s. It was going to be hot. It was summertime. Ended up being like 105 heat index. And man, we were just like, one person was just running water jugs, trying to keep water jugs full. And, there was, we went big that year too. We used every part of that mountain. We did shuttles on the mountain too, which was something really cool. There hasn't been shuttles on Nebo in a while, and that was really hard too. We were concerned, hills like that in old vans tear up transmissions.
That's true.
And so, a big shift that we started a couple years ago was re-envisioning the calendar for AES. And so, a couple of years ago, we did a little bit in the spring, and then did the real, meat of the series in the fall. And when Brannon and I started working together, we decided to shift the whole season to the fall. We felt like AES had been around long enough. Epic Rides. Unfortunately, that was a super cool event that they did, the Oz Trails 50. But that fall has opened up a little bit, and it's really the best. It's the best time to ride a bike in Arkansas.
Yeah, and that's
true.
Is the fall. So.
That's a good. I glazed over that a little bit, but I would say that it's not easier. Like, y'all, we are event rich. We are there's so many events on this calendar.
That's true.
I mean, what NICA is doing, it's a fall league. If you're familiar with the National Interscholastic Cycling Association, Arkansas's league has exploded. I think they've got close to 1,000 student athletes. Jeez. I mean, shout out to all those coaches and families and everybody, the schools, the teachers, everybody supporting those athletes. I mean, these kids are getting introduced now as early as 5th grade to the option to ride and race a mountain bike. And I mean, that's a game changer. I mean, we've got it's exploded. And with that, rightfully, man, they are that. I mean, they've got the calendar. I mean, it is. I mean, they are absorbing. Because a lot of our racers are also coaches or they're also parents, and so we worked a lot this year. To Dustin's point, the best time to race a mountain bike in the state of Arkansas is in the fall. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, that's probably a good segue to actually talking about the schedule for this season, right?
Right. And so when we set out to re-envision this, it was about, if we're going to create the best product and we're going to present this as, truly a premier national level enduro series based in Arkansas, when's the best time to do it? Well, it's going to be fall. And so I just shout out to the other promoters that are working with us to find these spaces on the calendar this year. The entire series conflicts one time with NICA, which means every junior in the state has a chance to. So our point series is best 3 out of 4.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody wanting to race NICA but also experience this gravity space, they can race their full NICA calendar. And then they can also race the Enduro Series. They would miss one round, and they'd still qualify for max points. And so we've worked real hard to, we worked with AMBCS and the cross country calendar. We worked with NICA to craft a space, an appropriate space for the Arkansas Enduro Series, because we do think it needs to be elevated. We do need it. Thinks it needs its place on the calendar. It doesn't need to be bullied around, and we're not willing to let it be bullied around, because if we're really going to showcase the investment being made in gravity in Arkansas, we need to do it at a time of year that is the best time to showcase that.
It's beneficial to the event and the success of the event. And I mean, I also appreciate the working with the other events within the same space, because, I mean, honestly, everybody wants the same thing from their events. They want the crowd to show up. And if this happens in the music space a lot, where, like a band will book something, another band will book something, but people would go to both of them if they could, but you took that Saturday slot and I can only go to one, Same happens with bikes, like if there's events that are stepping on one another, people have to just make a choice. Like, am I involved in this, or am I involved in this? And the fact that you're even just taking a conscious effort to try to make it to where it's friendly or like accessible to all.
And that's all our events. We want, and I mentioned this, but it's something I use a lot, is we want to be complementary to, not competitive with, the market. And that goes both from the style of events that we're producing, but also when we're producing them on the calendar. And I think that, and again, that takes a lot of work on an annual basis to make that work and to fit that in, especially to an event-rich state like Arkansas. But we're doing the work and we're making it happen. So I'm stoked. But like you said, that's a great segue to the season. I mean, what do you got here? Yeah,
we're showing it. We're showing it to the audience right now.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
They're taking a look.
And back to Casey Anderson, right?
Yeah.
Asked the question, and there's some pretty cool stuff falling. You can only control so much. And like Brandon said, there's been these transitions of different events and working around these different calendars and seasons, and there's some pretty cool stuff falling into place right now
naturally.
Again, Nebo, they have it's not just a trail system, it's a very busy park.
It's not just bikes,
and they're also rightfully protective of those seasons. They kind of Scot. I always loved working with Scot and his team when we did the Nebo Enduro down at that state park. He knows, he's been there for over 30 years, and he knows when. He's like,
when you're stepping on
if you
toes.
Guys try to plan, if you guys try to plan this race on this date, he's like,
it's going to be a for sure no.
Everything will already be booked.
Yeah.
So there'd be no room for us up there. It's not a big
window
hilltop. There's only so much. It's kind of up there in the sky.
True.
By itself, and so there's limited lodging and resources.
Right.
Up there. Another really cool thing, about Nebo, and back to the event only lines and scratch lines. I had asked that question, back then, and talking about venues. Sometimes, if a venue or a landowner, they might not be familiar with enduro, or I kind of call it the scratch line theory. I think we've had a lot of practice and experience in going in and having a just experience going in and finding the good places that are going to be fitting for a line like this.
Sure.
That we can kind of ensure that we're going to try to, we're going to be responsible about how we put it in, how we cover it up, and how it gets managed. That was kind of a hard no at Nebo in the beginning.
Okay.
But really, I mean, Big Mountain Enduro and the support that they got kind of helped us open up that possibility of doing more stuff. I mean, when we first went to Pinnacle Mountain for the Capital City Enduro, they were already familiar with what had been done at Nebo, and we didn't really have to sell them that hard on
that precedent had already been set for us, which is stuff. I mean, that's again when they see these lane managers again, when you have organizations like shout out to Big Mountain Enduro doing it the right way, you know, working with these lane managers the right way. If we all collectively are doing this the right way and truly creating these meaningful partnerships with landowners, a lot of times when it makes sense, we can create some pretty unique
good
experiences.
relationships.
Good relationships, and that means good experiences for everybody. And so
that's true. So like I imagine that, you know, I can only in any space that somebody's doing something right, there can be people that are doing stuff wrong. And if you have like a space that maybe had an event and they didn't have such a great experience, you know, that can be withholding for like future stuff. And so like that is like speaks to a testament of like, especially like, you know, what we're looking at the calendar right now. I mean, a lot of these places are having you back. This isn't like, hey, you could only pull this off once. I'm not going to name names, but there's this like one group that does events, and like they constantly have to like go to different locations because, and the joke is like, oh, so you didn't make it work again? They wouldn't let you back. But like, you know, in this instance, you know, a lot of the locations are return locations, and then you're doing something different in that return location. But that also means that the city was happy.
Yeah.
And the municipalities were like, yeah, we'll do that again. Yeah. Come on back, you know?
Yeah.
So that, again, speak to a testament. I mean, they got Eureka Enduro, like Eureka, I feel like is going to be there forever.
It's a classic.
Okay.
And you know, back again with the seasons, you know, Fat Tire Festival used to, you know, it was right one of the longest running mountain bike festival in Arkansas, but it was in July.
And so this is making sense now about the
then
structure.
Also, like Brandon said, and back in the day there was actually a trials competition at Fatty Fest. Cool. But I kind of felt like Fat Tire Festival in its prior form with the events it had, which made sense for the era that it started in, became a little bit antiquated. Like the Super D, for example, is basically a glorified enduro stage.
Right.
And so that was kind of one of the reasons why, you know, re-envisioning Fatty Fest, we're going to withhold a lot of those traditions that happened there, but looking through it with a new lens and putting it in a better season. So we're moving it to fall, September, fall.
Yeah. And like one of the best times, like the end of September, like that's when it starts.
Right.
Yeah.
Second longest mountain bike festival. Shout out to Devil's Den State Park, the longest running Ozark Mountain Bike Festival that have Devil's Den State Park Mountain Bike Festival that happens down there each April. So I'm taking myself down a little history.
I appreciate that. We needed a live fact check.
There you go. I fact checked myself right there. No worries. But you know, listen, we're excited about the season.
Yeah.
Like if you've never, so the Fayetteville Enduro is, we did it last in, I think, 22, maybe the last time. It heavily featured Centennial Park. Centennial Park was new at the time.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
We're taking this back to what I think is one of the true gems or jewels in the entire region. I think it's one of the best places to ride a mountain bike, and that's Kessler Mountain.
Kessler, there we go.
And it is,
there we go.
I mean, that started as a hand-built system built by the community of Fayetteville, Arkansas, the Ozark Off-Road Cyclists.
Ozark Off-Road, man.
Yeah, they were hammering out there for years, and they have over the years that thing has been continued to shape into something really special. And right now, under development on the mountain's west side is not one but two new enduro style lines. Oh yeah,
really?
Oh yeah. So the Ozark Off-Road Cyclists in 2019 announced the Kessler campaign, which is a fundraising campaign. They had bought 40-acre properties on the kind of that western slope, the Farmington side of the mountain, to preserve that, conserve that for future use. They've raised the money. Now they're building the trail, y'all. And guess who is going to premiere that trail this August? Is Labor Day weekend. Fayetteville Enduro. The ORC in partnership with us, we're going to be the first to rip down two rowdy brand new descent lines off that side of the mountain.
We're so
stoked on that. And so again, Kessler just continues to get better and better. And so if you've come to Arkansas and, you know, the gravity that it appropriately is of Bentonville, and if that's what's drawn you in and you've never found your way south to Fayetteville, Arkansas, Kessler Mountain is, I mean, that is just a hidden gem in this region that you just have to experience, and you get an opportunity to do it this season with the Arkansas Enduro Series.
So rad.
From there, we move in September. We take the show on the road back to Eureka. You know, there's a couple staples in the series. I think Eureka and that kind of Bentonville, Bella Vista area will always be two kind of staple rounds for the series. They really have a home in the series. People look forward to those two. It gives us some flexibility to move some other things around. But excited to, you know, for this September timeline in Eureka Springs. That is a beautiful time to be in Eureka. The fact that we're bringing back Fat Tire Festival, we're adding downhill back in.
I love
we're
that.
holding on to things like the Big Town Ride and those things that made that festival, that long-running festival, such a cool weekend and experience in Eureka Springs. Taking the show back down to Central Arkansas for the Capital City Enduro in late October. Again, Pinnacle Mountain State Park, that's another one of those. I think it's the newest of the state's monument trails. They've got more under development. They've announced, you know, Mina's coming online. There's others I know in the works, but if you haven't had a chance to get down to Pinnacle Mountain State Park, here's your chance. Come race the Capital City Enduro. Again, like Dustin said, at one point in a single day of racing, Madeline, you did it. You had literally the state capitol over one shoulder, and you had Pinnacle Mountain over the other. And you get to truly, when we say Capital City, like that course, you immersed yourself in Little Rock, Arkansas, and the state capitol. And so what a great name for that race, and what a great venue. And then again, tying the bow this year, the championships going to be back in Bentonville. We're stoked on that. That's the 1-2 day. And so just a quick shout out here for some participants. Again, we want to be supportive of development in sport, and specifically the juniors and the Groms and those looking to participate.
Sure.
The Fayetteville, the Eureka, and the Little Rock are one-day enduros, which is really a 2-day event for y'all knowing. You show up Saturday, you pre-ride, you show up Sunday, you rip it. Bentonville's going to be our 1-2 day this year, which I'm stoked about. But it's done by design, and we tested the waters last year. That is the weekend before Thanksgiving, which means everyone's on fall break the next week. Yeah. And so we had great numbers. It was our largest event last year. And so what a cool opportunity to drop this. You want to start your fall break, right? Come to Bentonville, Arkansas, and race the Bentonville Enduro the weekend before Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Sure. I really thought of everything. That's
really
excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, the fact that you landed the 2-day at the end, I think that really is good refinement. I really feel like that. And also, you know, Dustin, earlier you were talking about like getting some feedback from some people that from the e-bike stages.
You got that spicy question you've been holding on to?
Oh, it's coming. That's coming.
This
comes into this. So OZ e-bikes, first off, they just shouted out that they had a blast on the e-bike stages.
Nice.
So, you know, and if anybody's going to speak as a voice for the e-bike community, they should do it. So we were talking about like people pushing themselves, the possibility of like e-bike stages that maybe you have to conserve battery, things like that. And we were talking about jailbreaking e-bikes earlier. Have you ever like actually busted somebody in the race for jailbreaking, noticed it, found it, and was like, hey, we got to do something about it?
No.
Not yet. I mean, not in our series. I know I've heard others have. That is something I know that other series. I mean, we know that. Okay. Listen, it's, you know, the fact that you can do that and that technology exists. You know, like, yeah, there probably someone's going to give that a try at some point, unfortunately. But in our series, again, because one, we can go to the tape. I mean, it's pretty evident. Listen, if you're ripping down the trail at 28 miles an hour during the stage, it's going to show, right? I mean, if you're able to do that above what others can normally do on a Class 1 e-bike, like the time tape's likely going to kind of stand out a little bit in that space. That's one space. But also, again, this community, man, we self-regulate. And so, like, if somebody is out there, somebody's going to tell, they will. Like, they're going to do it anonymously. We're not going to call anybody out. But I will tell you that if you're out there racing and one of your peers perceives you to be doing something that is against the rules, chances are, like a race director or an event director like myself, it's going to find its way back to us. And I will tell you, last season, that did not find its way back to us, at least in the positions we're in as race director and event director of the Arkansas Enduro Series.
And we try to best create the schedule, you know, to stick to a schedule that makes sense for the day and the mileage, and whether it's a 1-day or 2-day. But, you know, we try to have a cutoff time or a finish time,
right,
and then have this intermission or probation period before awards. And so, I can't think of specific examples over the years, but there's been times where someone has come up in that time and raised a question or a concern, and that's really the time to do it. So if racers are listening, and maybe that's something that we can further.
And we announce it on the mic. Like we do typically between like the hour ahead of doing the awards podium. If you have concerns, now's the time to just, let us know about it. We've got that kind of that time for racers to come if they have a concern or they had an issue or they saw something out there, they want to question someone else's racecraft or whatever it was, just come talk to us, and we bake that into the schedule. And we usually do that around a time that's pretty cool. So something that I call it shenanigans. Those that know me, I probably use that word a lot, but it's one of my favorite words. I think it like literally even says it on my phone. Shenanigans. And so we're about that. And so we have this block of time before our award ceremony. That it's just appropriate that it's shenanigans. We'll do everything
like
from
when, the long jump happens
and all that stuff. And so
shout out to the kids that were killing it last
sending
on the
that
Bentonville.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
Sending it.
It was ridiculous.
It got rowdy.
It got
is what it
a little
was.
dangerous.
So this year, and so we can say we're doing all the announcements tonight. I love this. So partnering with a cat out of St. Louis and Wheels Up Enduro, and we're bringing big bags to Eureka, and we're bringing big bags to Bentonville. And so that is, we're going to step that up a little bit. And so we're going to give folks some free bag time.
Okay.
And then we'll, you just kind of get out there, and then we'll throw down we're going to throw down some best trick comps at Eureka and Bentonville into the bags that I think will be a lot of fun and get a lot of people pretty stoked. And so we continue to kind of up that time. But again, if you need to, if you want to do a protest, well, that'll be your time to do that. And so we kind of bake that in by design in the competition.
I feel like let's be honest, it's on the podium. It's on the podium where those concerns arise.
Typically, yeah. I mean, if you're going to have one, it's towards the top. And that's any sport. Listen, we do a lot of sport, everything from, I see it from criterium racing and road racing to
like
mountain bike racing and to just people's own racecraft and cutting lines. And in the sprints, there's some rule sets around pretty much any style of racing. You're going to have rule sets. And then, most of those have that. You're right. If there's a protest to be had, it's not mid-pack or back. It's those that were truly fighting for the podium, and that's where you're going to hear about it. And again, to just from last year, I think we got through a season of pretty clean racing that everybody felt was nice and fair.
Okay, no, that's good. That's good to hear. I mean, there was,
and if they stay quiet, then again, that's something that maybe again knowing that's there, that we anonymous, whatever it is, we'd love to hear about it. But at the end of the day, I think for the most part, listen. This Enduro crowd's pretty good humans. I'll speak for Madeline. Don't know her much, but she seems to be like a pretty good human. And so,
Madeline, did you cheat? Did you cheat?
No,
when you jailbreaked her legs,
I did want to add just it was just such. I hate to say vibes because I sound like a youth, but it really was good community vibes, and I just wanted to share my story on at Little Rock Stage 2. So. Almost immediately, I got a complete flat. Like, I hit the drop and then 0 PSI. And for people that don't know, Stage 2, you almost immediately went into a very steep rock garden, followed by, chunk and loose loam, and then the awesome flowy section. I rode the whole thing flat, and that's not the point of the story. It's at the bottom. I get there and I'm like, oh, my tire is I don't know if I can patch this. I'm freaking out. And almost immediately I had a crowd of people come up what do you need? Do you need a plug? Do you need this? Are you okay? Emma's dad, Jason, he came up and he's his 2 sons, adorable sons, held my bike and he's pumping it up and my friend's patching this and another guy's like, you are the stage marshal girl. Here's my Dynaplugs. These are the best. And if that doesn't work, here's another. Just swarmed by help. And
community.
I just stood there and all. It's this is amazing.
That's awesome.
Just no one I was like, my competition's dad is helping me right now. And then I was they're just a sweet.
Well, you did just ride the whole stage flat, so he probably knew that you were at this point might have been at a disadvantage. Shout out for you. That was the rowdiest stage out there. So shout out for you to riding that one on a flat.
That was one of my favorite memories in the race because I was I remember I heard my tire go flat and I was like, screw it. Just go. And
power through it.
My rim the whole time, just bam, bam, bam. I still am riding on the same rim.
Yeah.
But
There you go.
Nice.
Shout out to
shout-
Dynaplug because I love
Dynaplug. I
They're
went
so
as soon
dope.
as I got back home, I bought Dynaplugs, and
Nice.
like
Oh, yeah.
that is all I use now. Shout
Me
out.
too.
Yeah.
I'm not sponsored by them, but
But
it just
you
like
can be.
yeah, huge thanks to all those people that just swarmed me after stage 2. Like that just like made my heart so full. I was like,
Yeah.
this is such a cool community that everyone's just like throwing aid at me.
Yeah, that's so
Um,
cool.
I was like, wow, I'll never forget that. That was just really awesome.
Yeah.
Can we ask spicy questions?
Yeah,
Sure.
this is the place for spice.
Wait, don't
My
you about?
brother.
Are you gonna ask me a spicy question?
No,
I was
no.
like, we don't do
I
that.
don't know
We-
that's that spicy of a question. I would just
Yeah.
I would say, going back to the Oz e-bikes
Yeah.
question and response.
Mm-hmm.
One of my original, just brainstorming ideas with having the power stages and trying to come up with how to regulate
Yeah.
rules and people from jailbreaking and cheating on e-bikes.
Yeah.
I was originally thinking that we would try to find a partner or a sponsor or someone who would step up to help regulate.
Like essentially like sponsor the power stages, let's say.
In a way,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
maybe
like
potentially.
e-bike advocacy meets like you guys are the marshals for
exactly.
Yes.
So
Love
I would I guess my spicy question is more of a challenge
yeah.
to Sean and Jason and the guys at Oz e-bikes.
Let's
Is,
go.
like, hey, if you're interested,
Yeah.
Let's go.
Maybe that could be a good place for someone like them to step in and help evolve that rule set, and also maybe be the person,
I like
if you set up your tent or your van, their van or whatever, and be like, hey, these are the guys that
the regulators for this
that are every e-bike might be up for inspection.
Yeah, just
Oh,
random.
that's
Sure.
wild. That's a good idea.
or
Like
or
it's got to get checked the box.
Gotta get checked
before you
off.
can
or
race
also
something.
available during the period before awards if there's a question, and be like, hey, this guy just smoked everybody
Yeah.
on every stage by 30 seconds.
Can we have like a non-biased party
Yeah.
evaluate this?
Yeah. Somebody from the industry again that comes from that space that does, I don't know, that maybe owns an e-bike company that's
Maybe.
renting those in Bentonville,
Something
Arkansas,
like
like
that.
Oz
Yeah.
e-bikes. Or whatever.
Yeah.
Could be a great partner. Good shout.
I mean, I
That's
have
fantastic.
to admit, like, I know you guys haven't heard anything, but I have.
Okay.
Okay.
I hear people just out on the trail
Well-
going, man, so many people were jailbreaking, and it's like, how do you know? And it's like, there's just no way, But then,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
You
see.
know what
I
mean?
would go into like the reserved category, not that I would, but I would say that most people are in that reserved category of like, man, I'm not gonna be the rat. I'm not gonna say something.
Well, I'll say I know that I don't know, I can't remember who it was. I talked to someone who, this came up in, I think, a pretty casual conversation, and said, yeah, I can, I don't know. There's different ways to do it, right? I think some people like have something on their phone where they can
I have
Just
no
like
idea.
basically like upload a file or
basically
something.
hit a switch and turn that on and off.
Yeah.
And this came up in a casual conversation, and they were like, well, I do have my bike where I can do that, but I don't, I don't in this setting.
I might have heard
I'm
the same story.
I'm racing
Yeah.
fair. Like, I might do that,
I might be able to do that, but I'm not doing that today.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
most of the time, depending on how new your bike is, it breaks the warranty, from my understanding.
But I mean, who's
I don't know
really
who-
caring? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. If you just got it and broke it, and then all of a sudden, because I also heard that when you break it and go past, you're using it like at a high speed, it also it's susceptible to
Issues.
damaging them and making more issues. So
Right.
if you had a warranty on your motor but you broke
Right.
it, they're not going to cover it.
So we need someone that knows more about e-bikes than all of us.
Probably, yeah.
Yep.
It's
Those
a
e-bikes.
slippery slope. I don't know how to
We'll call that
navigate through
a
that, but-
spicy challenge, maybe.
Spicy
Yeah,
challenge.
that's
There
a
you go.
spicy
To the
challenge.
industry.
Will you
Love it.
step up to the plate?
Yeah.
No, it's cool because I mean, like, there's like that. I don't know that everybody wants to be that person, like to be the Karen, like, or feel like a Karen,
Yeah, respect
Mhm.
that.
And sorry to Karens out there, but I feel like that you know, you would hope that some sort of regulation would occur if you were the one that was like, yeah, I think they were cheating. They're probably going to say something, but then nothing is said. And you're like, well, what was supposed to catch it? You know, what was supposed to be the net to catch it? And self-regulation is definitely something. I mean, you know, in the skateboard community, ridicule is heavy. So, I mean, you can that just happens. If you know they speak, the community speaks. But when it comes to this stuff, I mean, I feel like because it's such a short, like you said, the shenanigans window, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's like almost the perfect timing to do it. It's like, well, everybody's all playing around.
Too.
Yeah. It's like, hey, come up to the tent, talk to us real quick, tell us your story. So I guess shout out to the writers, or like, you know, note to the writers, if you have something to say, speak. I mean, speak up, because it's important that you guys know.
And again, this new space, right? You're gonna have stuff like this, and we're all trying. We're not the only. Every series is trying to solve for this right now. We recognize that this is, you know, a part of the future of racing in mountain biking, and that it's it's in its infancy, right?
Sure.
We're just now scratching the surface. So I have to, sport will catch up, you know, rules will catch up, or the rules are there, but the technology to maybe enforce those rules in a higher degree than just us having them there. And right now what we have is we've got this amazing opportunity to create experiences for folks that some otherwise wouldn't be racing to come out and have these experiences. We do put an appropriate rule set around that. Right now, with where the industry is, we do have to put a lot of that back on the participant to help us regulate that rule set. And that's just where, that's not us, that's everybody in this space right now. I have to imagine as they're trying to solve for this e-bikes and the again, 1 in 5 participants are showing up. Those numbers are only going to continue to go up, y'all, which I'm excited about. Like traditional bikes are not going anywhere. But at the same time, if, you know, we're the adoption of e-bikes, we want to be acceptive to that and create unique experiences for folks to, you know, again, like I said, you bought the thing, let's race the thing, but let's do so in a fair way. And so, at some point, you know, again, challenge to the industry, help us out, help those in this event production space that are wanting to. You say that e-bikes are the next big thing. Well, help us out by helping us figure out ways to then regulate a fair, you know, fairness in sport as it pertains to racing those e-bikes.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
I think that's a great sentiment to the industry as a whole, that you're open to that evolution, and that the evolution doesn't just come from you guys. It comes from the community and the community's involvement in the development. You know, but it only comes with, you know, people being vocal about these things. Yeah. And it seems like you guys are pretty open to, you know, like you can reach you guys. You know, you're reachable. So, you know, I think that would probably, that's a good segue to maybe talking about what's, you know, I know you guys are big on secrets, but for just the sake of conversation, if there wasn't of the places that you have done Arkansas Enduros at, is there a place that's in the future on the map, or that's planned to be on the map that isn't yet?
I mean, I think a lot of we as a foundation, and this is just speaking for the Ozark Foundation, our commitment to those that are investing making the large investments from the state of Arkansas to those making the investment across, you know, in the Oztrails network is to leverage that investment being made. And the investments that are being made currently, you know, next year, we're opening up the Oztrails downhill park in that Bentonville, Bella Vista area. We're going to appropriately leverage that, you know, by 27 or 28, you know, Mina is going to come online, y'all, and that is, I mean, that is going to be you know, there's talking about 100 plus miles, 3 chairlifts. I mean, that's a big investment that the state of Arkansas is making in gravity. I mean, that is going to be the place to be. And so everything we're doing with this series is to continue to prime the pumps that when those investments are made and when those ribbons are cut on those venues, we're ready to slide right in there. We're right there with the products, and we've got the series from the Arkansas Enduro Series to the Arkansas Downhill Series. We got all these things in the pipeline that are going to continue to leverage the investment that those in the state are making. And so what's to come, you build it, we'll bring it.
Field of dreams.
I'm
love
really
it.
excited for the downhill series. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, and there's a big call for that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's
yeah.
people that are looking for extreme grade.
For sure.
Mhm.
I mean, we've heard it on this show more than 3 times.
Oh,
like seriously.
Well, I'm really excited about it. And whenever I started, took a bigger role in, taking over SET,
Mm-hmm.
and I helped in some capacity was a visionary or whatever for AES, and then again 2019 stepped into a bigger role.
Yeah.
I started out more before enduro racing downhill,
Right.
and so that was really one of my first targets.
Yeah.
I wanted to get back into having a downhill race. So
But it was
I'm
selfishly a little bit like it's like you're
Oh,
personally you love it.
Well, we've just been
Yeah.
we've done, gosh, there was a couple of years where me and some Lucas isn't here
Yeah.
tonight. He's helped me through a lot of seasons, and
Yeah.
there was a couple of seasons
Super
where
shout out,
we did
Lucas.
so many races. We were putting on
Mhm.
some of our own races. We were helping a lot of other races with their stuff, and we were doing so much, where it was almost it was a lot.
Right.
So and actually we have kind of put on kind of a downhill event, Slaughterama.
Slaughterama.
Has
Yeah.
been we call that kind of an endurance downhill.
Yeah. Yeah.
But basically I'm excited about the opportunities for downhill racing.
Yeah.
It's something I've been passionate about for a long time and competed in and had a lot of fun in. There actually, and back to history, there used to be a downhill series in Arkansas. I don't know exactly the time window when that was happening, but
Yeah.
in the same time when the early days of Fat Tire Festival
Okay.
and the downhill trail there,
Yeah.
and the Devil's Den Mountain Bike Festival, there used to be a downhill course at Devil's Den, and it was kind of actually right when I had a curiosity about when I first started mountain biking,
Right.
and had an interest in maybe trying downhill mountain biking. I went out and walked, spectated, and that was the last year that they did the downhill at Devil's Den.
Okay.
And to my understanding, that trail kind of got shut down. I think it might have been partly on private property outside of the state park, and there were some issues.
I've heard of this.
Issues like that.
I have heard of this. Yeah.
I don't know what happened if the ownership changed on the property or whatever, but
Right.
my understanding was, like I said, I don't know the timeline. I just kind of know, Woody, Progressive Trail Design. He was pretty instrumental in obviously helping building some of the first
Trails like purpose built.
official
Yeah.
purpose built
Mm-hmm.
machine built trails
Yep.
at Slaughter Pen, and him and Crone did a lot in the original DH line at Leatherwood. I've seen that line. I helped kind of shift. Back in the day, the drop on DH2 was actually quite a bit smaller. It shot off more to the right, where the B line is now. Was kind of the original drop.
Okay.
And I got to see and have a little hand in helping reroute that line a little bit. But Woody and Crone go back way farther.
Yeah.
Than I.
Yeah. Did they
building
build the Thunder Chicken Trail?
Yeah, that
It
was
was,
progressive.
and that was a Hardy, Josh
Hardy, yeah,
Hardy,
yeah.
and Ben Mays. He's out in Colorado now. I think and Wheeler, Josh Wheeler. I think were
Josh Wheeler, yeah.
kind of the crew that built
Okay.
original Thunder
ahead of
Chicken
its time
Man.
a little bit.
Ahead
for
of its
sure.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
it
Yeah,
totally
it was.
is. It's still there.
Yeah.
Be it covered and completely eroded. But I mean, this
We've talked
studio's in
about it.
Springdale, so we want it back.
Nice.
But so the old downhill series. My understanding was that Devil's Den, Leatherwood, Mina,
Yeah.
and there was a trail at Birds Adventures.
No.
Yeah.
For real.
There was an old I guess, DH line.
Whoa.
I never saw it.
Wow. Interesting.
I've talked
Never
to
knew.
people that, remember it. I'm sure Rinko and Woody would have memories of that. But yeah, that was.
Gosh, I feel like Birds might be down. They might be down to spark that one back.
So it's cool to see, we've all kind of, enduro is such a applicable format to do in this region in Arkansas. We've had a lot of focus on enduro racing, and I'm kind of excited to see it come, I guess, full circle back with some of these new investments and development that's in the pipeline to
race them downhill.
Legit gravity downhill racing in Arkansas.
We had Grant Rogers on, and he was talking about the build at Mulberry. So there's stuff there.
Right.
I've actually never seen it myself personally, so I don't really know if it fits the mold or not. But speaking on infrastructure, I mean, like, they do have the campground there, so I mean, there is some space to do it, and I love that area. The Ozark National Forest always gives. But it is cool to know that you're that there's other venues on the horizon.
And I would we can put some of this back on. Where do you want to race? You know what I mean? We put some of this back on the participant. We know Nebo is on the short list, but let us know. Reach out, give us a shout. I mean, if there's a zone you want to go, be in like a race setting, give us a shout, because we'd be happy to explore that space.
Is there anything at Horseshoe Canyon? I always keep hearing that's a fun place.
Horseshoe Canyon, for sure. They're building, that's a, quick shout out to that venue. That's being re-envisioned with specifically for e-mountain bikes. And so everything that they're building out there, because of the topo and the steeps, like a lot of what they're building out there is meant by design for e-mountain bikes. I mean, they got rid of the horses and they brought in e-mountain bikes. That's true. And so now, out there now, you've got this, what is one of the most, the most iconic climbing destinations in the country. I'd put it up against anything. But then now that the investment being made out there specifically for e-mountain bikes and with e-mountain bikes in mind. And so when we think about like an e-mountain bike only venue, well, Horseshoe Canyon
that would be one of
the
them.
Short list.
Wow. Yeah. That's cool. Who was the build contractor for that?
I believe Rock Solid.
Rock Solid
did. Yeah. I hang out with Hardy a bit, and he's been over at Rock Solid for a little while.
Seems like it
now. Well, he was with PTD for a long time, and then wanted to. Well, anyway, that's his story to tell. But I've talked to him and heard a lot about, he had he stepped into building at Horseshoe and has done, sounds like really some really
it seems like a lot. And I mean, I personally, I mean, has this room not been there? You been there?
I've been there. I went down one of their downhill lines, and I can see why it's an E plate. Really? It's a lot of you put in some work there, but it was spicy.
Nice.
We went down only once, and I was like, "Whew, I'm glad I'm one awake today." It was
rough.
Is there shuttles there? Like, do they have a shuttle?
I don't think
I think
so.
it's again
It's
your e-bike. Your E is your shuttle, and I think they're designing
maybe
the
that's the
system.
design around
That's
it.
the design around
It's in a big canyon.
I see.
Yeah,
there's just no way to shuttle.
Though. I mean,
self shuttle. On the,
if you don't have an E, I mean, you just stop and take in the view. Like the XC trails, you feel like you're in Lord of the Rings, and then the downhill hub. I mean, you just get this great view of the whole place.
Oh, there's a hub for the downhill stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they call it hub. When I went there's a black line and the blue, and I think they were working on the black, but they just had like a little tent up there, and instantly you're going into these like steep, loose berms, and then it was just like straight down through the forest, and there was some, like, they called them staircases, but it was just like chunky rock garden straight down.
That's good.
It's like like one where you can't stop. You have to just be like, all right, there's a line, go. Like,
nice.
Sounds like some proper DH.
Yeah. That sounds like something up the.
It is not one
the
to
alley.
hesitate. Yeah. I had a fun time there.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, yeah, man, we're rounding out our 2-hour mark.
Okay.
We very much appreciate you guys coming.
I got one quick thing I want to shout out. So just, as we, I'm going through my head of a few things. And one thing I want to talk about just shortly is, we ourselves, the Ozark Foundation, is a nonprofit, and a lot of what we do is to remove barriers to access the outdoors, and we're doing that with some pretty unique, pretty rowdy race experiences. But at the same time, with those series, with those races, we want them to mean more, and we want them themselves to, maybe reach out into some communities and some spaces that, create an additional purpose or meaning behind it. Mm-hmm. And with the Arkansas Enduro Series, I'm stoked to announce that we're going to be partnering with the Veterans Future Foundation and the Dirt Therapy Project this year. And Jonathan, and if you haven't talked to him, he'd probably be a good guest. I know he would be. But what the Dirt Therapy Project is doing to utilize mountain biking and enduro mountain biking as a means to reach veterans and help them in, whatever journey they're on to stay healthy or be healthier.
Sure.
And if you're a member of the Dirt Therapy Project, membership is free, and you're a veteran and you're part of that program and what they're doing and the work they're doing, your whole series is 50% off this year. And and so we're doing some really deep discounts for our veterans out there.
Very cool.
We're stoked to offer that. Again, if you haven't heard of the Dirt Therapy Project and the work they're doing at Veterans Future Foundation, take a look at them. Yeah. They are doing the work that needs to be done in that space. We're not, but we're happy to support them in that effort. And if subsidizing or reducing the cost for those veterans to compete, we're happy to do so. So stoked to announce that partnership with them. And you'll hear more about that. We'll be making some noise about that in May ahead of registration opening June 1st. So put that on your calendars. More information, ArkansasEnduroSeries.com.
Well, I think,
ironically enough, they will be on the show next Thursday.
That's our next guest.
So
we're gonna hear from them very shortly.
So, I did not know that. There you go. I just gave you a segue to your next
show. That's right.
You are welcome.
Did. That's why I had to say that. I was like, well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, it proves that this stuff is full circle.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think that you build community alone. And it's things like this show, like the series, like the Team Gnarkansas race team. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Shout out Madeline for podium stomping.
We appreciate the support.
And just again, community has to come from us being a community and seeing all these different fixtures of the community getting together and just doing stuff. I mean, Arkansas Enduro, Kohler. You guys are taking this down to the capital city. That's bringing the kind of like making the connection between Little Rock and Northwest Arkansas, which as skaters we've had that same connection, and it's just like we're just blossoming and refining these relationships that we have with these people, and it's only going to get bigger and better. We're starting to see, like the last stop, we talked to a lot of people from just different cities, different states that came for your event, and that was
Wichita.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people I talked to.
Yeah, the Kansas crew. Shout out to the Kansas crew. Those kids are rowdy. Love those kids.
They were.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's just proof that people are recognizing what's going on here from other areas and wanting to come and participate, and we're being vehicles for that.
Well, thanks for being that vehicle. Thanks for helping us tell this story and and opening up this opportunity for us to just be here tonight. We were glad to be here.
Yeah. We appreciate it.
Thank you too for all the incredible amount of work that went into the planning, not just for the trails, but the organization, the thoughtfulness of trying to get the parents and the kids and the coaches, and just the passion too that y'all have for the sport and for the community. It really shows, and like I said, I think that's what really sets it apart. So I really appreciate it. I'm sure I'm not alone in that.
Not at all. Awesome. And even Gnarkansas wants to thank you guys for letting us post up and contribute to fun and a good time. And
and
having a blast.
We expect you there this year.
I know.
Speaking of precedent,
we are expected.
We are expected. We don't have a race team. I want to go. I'm going to volunteer.
For those that weren't there, Gnarkansas crew was the rowdiest crew at the venue. They brought the vibe, and so we'd love to welcome the team back. Obviously, love to have y'all because it's going to be a fun season. We're looking forward to it.
Thanks, it was very cool. It was very cool, and I'm sure there's tons of shout outs that we didn't get to. There is so many, but one that did come to mind before we bounce, the medical patrol,
Oz Mountain Bike Patrol,
Patrol,
crew,
sure.
on point all the time.
I mean, when Scott went down, I mean, they were right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very quick.
That's a when we say racer experience, safety is part of that.
Safety is a huge part
it's
of
a
it.
huge part of that. So between our partnership with the Oz Mountain Bike Patrol and shout out to UAMS.
Yeah.
They're the medical provider for that series. You'll see those, professionals at the aid stations. You get a little boo-boo, you go down. If you're able to, finish on under your own ability, likely you'll run into somebody ready to help render aid to you to keep you in the race. And then if you're, if you fall down or you need some assistance at the venue, we also have medical professionals at the venue. And so we take racer safety, like that is first and foremost in our racer experience, we'll call it. And so that's when you're out there, like you said, you went down.
I
and
went
medical
down
was
solid,
right there.
and
And
I
so
was spoiled.
Yep. And
Yeah,
so there you
I
go.
was literally spoiled.
Flat tire, we
Flat
spoiled
tire,
you.
yeah.
You go down,
Yeah.
we spoil you.
Yeah.
So
If that doesn't speak to like the
No.
community vibe and just the support, I mean, it's just it's an event to get behind, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, we did it. Appreciate everybody in the chat. The internet people. We can't thank you enough for watching, and make sure to follow all these people. We got Arkansas Enduro Series, Ozark Foundation, Madeline.
Neyland.
Yeah,
Madeline,
you're
there's
the
underscore
use your knee
land.
land.
Yeah. The anatomical knee.
Yeah, and you'll see more of us in the Team Gnarkansas race in Arkansas Enduro.
Awesome.
Right
Yeah,
on.
good stuff.
Thanks, gentlemen.
All right, we'll
Thanks.
see you guys later.